Hello everyone. So we got first session today. It's before the reading week. Okay. Let me start by saying something in case you have doubts. Okay. So far you have got your lectures. It's actually 2A and also 2B. So this is from week number 3 and from week number 4. Your lecture number 3, which is supposed to be released for week number 5, which is the current week, right? As I mentioned in my early announcement, I'm going to hold this for until your programming test 1. Okay, so this will be released. Just to mention, this will be released after your programming test number 1 on the Friday, so you can be more focused on preparing, getting prepared for your programming test 1, and also to go over your lab 1 solution, and also to actually complete your lab number 2. And notice that we don't actually, there will be no scheduled TA. No scheduled TA sessions during the reading week. Meaning that I'll try to host an office hour next week to help you guys, but I only got limited time, so I'll try my best to hold as many as possible. But you really want to make some progress this week, right? That's something I want to mention to you during reading week. Okay. All right, that's something I want to clarify first in case you have doubts. There will be some announcement I want to go over very quickly, just in case, so that you don't really miss the important milestone. So for your programming test 1, it's going to happen tomorrow, Thursday, and also Friday. The time window is going to be 24 hours from 2 p.m. to 2 p.m. That one will be similar to your written test 1. However, for the time limits, it's going to be 90 minutes. Okay. For your programming test 1. However, I'm going to send out an announcement a little bit later this afternoon to remind everybody in the class. I would suggest you definitely want to exercise the workflow of the test. The workflow for the test. Specifically, how you actually, let me just write down precisely what you really want to practice. You want to practice how to download, how to import into Eclipse. And also, once you complete your projects for your practice test, for example, you should really practice about how to export your project into ZunZip, right? And also to submit. And notice that for your programming test, you're not going to submit through the web submit like how you did it for your labs. It's going to be through the e-class, right? Right. So that's really something I would presume you will actually practice before the actual test, right? You're gonna be expected to know how to do that. Okay. At least practice that, and then notice that you're given 90 minutes. You should really give yourself for this part over here about the workflow, right? About download, export, import, and submit. You should really leave yourself about 10 minutes to actually get all these done, right? Really, as soon as the timer of your 90 minutes actually expired, the submission will be closed strictly by the e-class. So there's nothing I can do, right? You got to refer to the preparation guide for your programming test 1 to see in case you really missed the deadline for your attempt, what should you do, right? Look at the PDF guide. That's something I also need to assume that you will need to read over. Okay, that's about programming test 1. Do you have any questions related to programming test 1? I can answer you right away. Any questions related to programming test 1? Anyone? Okay, seeing none. Okay, fine. Okay, if you still got one, you can still type on the chat. Okay. Our lecture week number 4 on the test, please check the guide for coverage and policies, right? Always check that. That one actually said exactly what will be there, all right? Please check. And also we got, I released a tutorial video on your lab 1 solution. Basically just walk you through almost line by line in the solution. If you were struggling with completing lab number 1, I highly advise that you actually take a look and then try to maybe follow through my explanation and also the coding, and then maybe after that, you should really consider redoing your lab 1, maybe by setting some time limits, maybe for 2 hours or 2.5 hours, just for practice, right? And for your lecture week number 4, which was released last Monday, so that one is about the JUnit tests and also exceptions. So that one is actually going to be necessary for completing your lab number 2, right? So this is very relevant, okay? Very relevant to your lab number 2. So you want to make sure you complete the lecture in time. It's nothing I can do to force you to really complete the lecture on time. You have to discipline yourself to really finish the lecture. All right. If you got any trouble for questions, you should really reach out to me. If not today. For your lab number 2, it was released since last Friday, October 1st, and you are given about 2 weeks to do so, right? October 15th, next Friday will be the due dates. The due time is still the same. It's going to be 2 p.m. Okay, so make sure you do that. Okay, I see some question on the chat over here. Will marks be posted for lab 1 soon? We will, yeah, I already asked the TA to look into the grading, so I'm hoping that I will release the marks for your lab 1 and also lab 0 part 1 and part 2 soon after the reading week. We'll try to give you that. But if your concern is about how to do lab 1, you definitely can go over the solution video that I made. So you don't really need to wait for your marks. But for your marks, it's going to be released shortly after the reading week. Okay, okay. I can see some question related to next semester. You're mentioning about 2001. I'm actually not teaching 2001. Are you referring to 2011? 2011? Is that what you meant? Okay, if 2011 is what you meant, I can mention to you briefly. I will be teaching 2 sections for 2011 next semester, section M and section N, I believe. I think one of them, as of now, one of them will be remote. The other one will be in person. Somehow the department wanted to offer both options, so I think that's something you will have to check. So in the case of the in-person lecture, there will definitely be some in-person components. May not be completely in-person like before the pandemic, but there will be some in-person component as well. But if you chose the remote option for 2011 with me, then you'll be completely remote, pretty much like how we are running the 2030 right now. Okay, but if you got any doubt, you can speak to me after this session here. Okay, and then would I recommend in person or remote or no preference? To be honest with you, I think I know that some of you might be really liking the online, but maybe more students don't like online. They really prefer in person. I would say if in person option is offered, why not, right? You can definitely have some interaction with me, the TA, or even your fellow students. It's always a good thing, to communicate. So I think the in person option might be better. But of course, we still have to see what's going to be the situation in Ontario or even in Toronto to see how the health measure has been. But let's hope for the best. Okay. Do I have knowledge about which section will be remote? I do know about it, but I forgot which one. Please check the registrar office timetable. If you look at the timetable, you will see which section is remote, which one is in person. I don't want to give the wrong information now, but look it up. It's not difficult to look up. If you got trouble looking up, you can let me know. All right, so yeah, sure. If you guys decide to take 2011 with me, I'll look forward to seeing you guys again, either in person or remotely. Either way. All right. Okay. All right, guys. I think that's about the announcement here. Do you guys have any questions related to the administrative side of the course before I start talking about some contents? Anyone? Any one of you? Okay, let me see. Seeing none from the chat and hearing none from your voice. Okay, that's good. All right, so unfortunately, I don't see any questions posted for lecture week number 4, especially 2B, right? That's the JUnit tests and also assertion. It could be that possibility number 1, maybe you guys really don't have questions. In that case, I'll be happy. Maybe the lecture was very clear, so you're okay. Possibility number 2, maybe you haven't really got there yet. My friendly advice would be you may have to catch up, as soon as you can, maybe this week or even in the reading week. You're welcome to still ask me questions related to any early lecture that you missed. That's what I can do. But as I said, you really have to catch up with the lecture. That'll be the part you have to do by yourself. I cannot do that for you. All right. Okay. So I don't see any Google Doc questions. There might be some other questions that might be posted by tomorrow's session. I don't know, but let me open the floor. Do you guys have any questions related to lecture 2B, which is the J units and assertion lecture, right? That lecture I can tell you is very important. Okay, let me just show to you over here. It's 2B. It's about test-driven developments with J units and also the exceptions. That's a lecture there. It's not very challenging topic, I would say, but it does have many tricky bits that you really have to get right logically. This lecture here will really help you understand the test cases I set up for lab number 2. And of course, lab number 2 is going to impact how you can understand for programming test 2, which will happen later after the reading week. For that one, it may not be so urgent. But what's coming for your written test number 2, also after the reading week, that one will definitely cover this lecture. Even though you do have some time before that, I do encourage you to really catch up, with the progress. If you haven't done that, you really want to do it. Okay. Okay, let me ask one more time. Do you have any questions related to this particular lecture? If you have followed through the contents. Anyone? All right. Hearing none, so I will need to leave you guys to really study lecture then. So if you got any questions related to it, you can email me, drop by my office hour, or ask me in a later Q&A. All right, that's okay for me as well. Okay, so that's about this week's lecture, right? Let's see here. I think since we don't have any questions related to that, do you have any questions related to lab 2? Guys, any questions related to lab number 2? Anyone? I know you guys are very concerned about programming test 1. That's normal. You definitely want to do well. That's why you have been maybe going over lab 1 solution and also the practice test. That's good. As long as you're doing some good work, I'm happy. But you want to catch up with the lecture. Okay. The scheduled labs will definitely come back after the reading week. We still got scheduled lab this week, but we just don't have it during the reading week, right? Because the TAs are students themselves as well, so we cannot really ask them to have some duties during the reading week, so they have to catch up with their study as well. So that's why. But as I said, I will hold office hour during the reading week to help you. Okay, so I think maybe we should talk about written test number 1 a little bit. Okay, at least I saw 2 questions over there. Okay. Yeah. Let me see. I remember there were 2 questions. Okay, one of them is about the persons array was found. Okay, let's see. Let me just go there. And the other one is about the call stack. Okay, I'll go back, go to them one by one. About your written test 1. Okay. But if you do believe that you really want to have a detailed walkthrough for almost every question for the written test 1, I would suggest maybe drop by my office hour. Maybe there's something more than the written test 1 that we got to talk about, right? Okay, let's now go to your written test number 1. And then what I would do is I'm just going to look at the question there. And I think the first one by Jared, that one is about, I believe that's an aliasing question. Okay, let me take a look. Like here. So Jerry, can you confirm that that's the question you're referring to?
No, it's question 5.
Oh, actually, the question number may not matter because it's randomized. But you're saying it's not this one?
No, it looks similar, but it asked for, there was more boxes.
More boxes. Okay. But it's gotta be that one. Maybe it's a different version, I guess. Okay, possibly this one here. This one here?
It had more options. You see how it says persons.
Oh, okay, possibly this one here. Possibly this one.
Yes, this
okay, one. Awesome. Okay. Yes, let's do it. Okay. Let me just copy the entire question over here. I think as soon as I start visualizing and just make sure you're okay. Oh, sorry, No, not this way. Let me do it again. Yeah, bear with me for about 30 seconds. I'll set it up so everybody can benefit from that. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me do once more. I want to be as clean as possible so that, okay, good. Okay, let me go back to my iPad over here. Okay, put it here. Okay, I hope that's visible to for everybody. Okay, I'll try to make it as large as possible. Okay, good. All right, so let's now try to go over this question together. It might happen again. It might appear in your test or exam again. So I think it's definitely good to make sure you're okay. Let's read it together. So what we have is we assume there's a person class already defined. It has an attribute name, and also it has a constructor that initializes the person's name from the input string. Okay, so we want to consider this code fragment over here, and then it's really important to see the next point. It's saying that over here in Eclipse we place a breakpoint at line number 5, right? So if you think about if the breakpoint is put right here, so that means up to now we have already executed 1, 2, 3, and also 4 lines of code over here, right? Right before we execute line number 5. In that case, after that, we actually got these 4 objects with their corresponding addresses, right? So I just say it's a person 8, 9, 10, 11. As long as they are unique, they are distinct, then we are okay. Okay. Let's see how we can visualize this, right? Quickly. So apparently we need 4 boxes for the person, right? We got P0, P1, P2, P3. Okay, let me put it here. So we got P0 over here is going to point to a person objects over here. You know what? To read, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so we got the name over here. Okay, and then the name is actually a string. In this case, Suyang. Okay, that's person 1. Person's P0. Let's do for all of them, right? P1 over here, just another person over here. And then it's going to be name over here. And then it's Yuna over here. Okay, I might be running out of space, so I'm going to put it here, right? And also P2, just another person over here. That's also person. And then it's going to be Sunhei over here. And we got the final one. So it's going to be P3. Okay, and then also person, the name, and then we got Jihei over here. Right? So I'm sure, Jared, up to here you're okay, right? About visualizing the 4 objects. Good. Let's now try to do the next one, okay? The next one here, you can see line number 5. Oh, by the way, before that, it may be now worth actually trying to label the address for each one of them, okay? So let me use a green. You can see here we got P0, P1, P2, P3, right? So for P0, it's a person at 08. And also P1, it's a person at 09. And then person at 09. And then we got person at 11. Okay, so these are the addresses, right? And let's now try to do some aliasing change. Okay, let me use, how about orange over here? Okay, P1 is assigned to P2. As we said in week number 2 in the review series, when you do P1 is assigned to P2, that means you're going to copy over the address that is stored in P2 into P1. Diagrammatically, P1 is now going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to, right? So that means P1, rather than pointing to over here, is going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to. P2 is pointing to this object over here. So that's why it's pointing to here. Okay. And then we're going to say similarly, P3 is assigned to P0. So that means P3, rather than pointing to over here, is going to point to wherever P0 is pointing to, right? Let me try to minimize the crossings. How about here? Like that. All right. So Jared, are you okay so far about the two assignments here so far? Where is person 10? What do you mean? Oh, I may have labeled it slightly wrong. That should be 10. Sure. Okay. Yeah, thanks for catching it. Apart from that, are we okay so far? Okay, good, good. Yeah, you could have just stopped me by speaking up, but that's okay. All right, so that's about up to now. And then we're going to create an array over here. The array is going to, let me use purple. Persons array, and then we're using the initializer expression. Index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, right? Index 0 of the array is going to store the address of P1, meaning that it is going to point to wherever P1 is pointing to. That's kind of the way you can visualize it. So let me now try to do the array. So we got persons array over here. So persons is a variable that is going to store the starting address of an array of size 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? And index 0 is going to point to wherever P1 is pointing to. P1 is currently pointing to this object here, as you can see, right? So that means 0 is now going to point to this particular object over here, okay? And then similarly, index 1 is going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to. P2 is also pointing to this object over here, right? So 1 is also going to point to this object over here, right? Also similarly. And then let's move on. And then we got P3 over here. P3, index 2. Index 2 is going to point to wherever P3 is pointing to. P3 is actually, if you follow the pointer, is pointing to this object over here. So that means index 2 is actually going to be like this. Okay, like that. And finally, we got index 3 should be pointing to wherever P0 is pointing to, right? So P0 is also pointing to this object here. You can see P0 here. So that means we're going to have like this. So index 3 is also going to point to this object over here. So now, for example, it's an extra exercise. What you can do is, let's say for this object specifically, let's say this object over here. A sensible question goes like this. How many aliases? Let me write down the question here. Are for this particular person 10 objects. Person 10 objects. How many? So Jared, this might be a question for you. How many? How many aliases, how many different variables or path expressions can actually refer to the same objects here? How many? 2? Well, it looks to be more than that. Can you tell me which 2? The one you can see. You said 2, right? Which 2? P2 and P1. Yeah, P1 and P2. Yes. When you say P1 and P2, you're basically talking about P2 indeed, and also P1 indeed. But don't you see there are another 2 arrows over here? One is from here, the other one is actually from here. So these 2 should also count. Index 0 and index 1 of the person's array, they also point to this particular objects. So you're missing 2. Right? Okay. Yeah, it's definitely worth doing exercise for you. Okay, so number 3 as well is going to be persons at index 0 and also persons at index 1. Okay, both of them. Okay, just don't forget. Let me just highlight them quickly. So you can see here is 1 and here is another 1. Okay, good. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so far you might be okay. Let's see, we got more manipulation over here. Let's let me use red over here. When I say P1 is assigned to persons 2, programmatically, what's going to happen is whatever that is stored in persons 2, you're going to store that over into P1, meaning that P1 is going to point to wherever persons 2 is pointing to, right? Where is persons 2 pointing to, right? If you look at this expression here, persons 2, persons at index 2 is pointing to this object over here. Now we're going to let P1 also point to that object. So P1 currently is actually pointing to this object here. So we're going to redirect that into this object over here. Okay. So P1, rather than pointing to this object over here, it is now going to point to, unavoidably, I have to cross the lines. So that will be like this. Okay. Let me just put a, let's say this particular redirection is going to be a star. Okay. So that's corresponding to line number 8 over here. Okay. Jared, did you follow this line? Line number 8? Good. Let's now take a look. Final one. Okay. This one is doing the reverse direction. After this particular assignments, persons 3 is going to point to wherever P0 is pointing to. So where is P0 pointing to? P0 is pointing to this object over here, and then we're going to let persons 3 point to wherever P0 is pointing to, but it's already pointing to there. So it will be as if there was no change. Okay? Because you, so just overriding the address with the same value, we just have no effects, right? So this is really something that you want to notice as well. Okay, just this arrow over here. Okay, so far so good. And now you will be able to answer the question, right? So Jared, do you want me to go on to answer some of them, or you're okay up to now? So here, when I say P3, for example, all you got to do is go to P3. P3 is referring to this object over here. What's its address? Persons 8. And you do the same for every one of them. Person 0. Person 0 over here. Well, you tell me, what's person 0 according to the diagram? What should be person 0? Yeah, exactly. Because person 0 is actually referring to this particular object over here, and that object is actually 10. Yeah, actually, just let me undo it. Okay, it's basically this line here. Persons and persons 10. Yeah, that's right. No, actually, whatever updates I show you on the diagram are exactly what's going to happen. If anything extra you think, that's not going to happen, right? The principle is easy. You will just have to understand very well about whenever you do variable assignments, follow the principle which we explain in your week number 2 tutorial. That's basically what you got to do. All right, any follow-up question to this about aliasing, visualizing aliasing, and also arrays, variable assignment, etc. Any follow-up to this? Okay, so hopefully by now you should be very proficient on at least to visualize and also to track the program. That's something I definitely expect you to do throughout the course for sure. It's really important for OOP. Okay, any more follow-up to this? All right. If no, I believe there is another questions. Okay. What's the other question about a written test? Let me see. I need to, whoever asked the question, you can remind me again. Otherwise, I need to look back to the chat. What's the next question you want me to go over? Okay. The call stack. Okay. Call stack. Let's do it. Okay, let me close this, and then I think for the call stack, let me see. Let me just go to the previous page. And you want to see the call stack over here. Okay. I got two versions. I can show either one, right? They're basically the same. Okay. How about we do this one here? Okay, that's a call stack, right? I presume you already read the questions. So let me just now just get this one here. Let me just do a screenshot, and then we go from there. Okay, the call stack. So what I will do is I advise on the question itself. You may just want to do it on the paper first of all, and then you will translate the sequence into that to drag and drop, on the question. I'll let you do that. Let me go directly onto my iPad, and I'll do that. Okay, one moment. Let me just paste that over here. Okay, I just make it as big as possible. Okay, I hope that's visible for everybody. Okay, now it's really important to know what's the starting point of execution. The starting point of execution is g.gm, right? That's where we start from. Okay, so you should also draw a call stack at the same time. Okay, so what I will do is I'm going to pull the call stack over here. Oh, that's not good enough. Like this. Okay, but remember what the question was asking you. What you really need to end up doing is the execution flow, which will be kind of the reverse of the in some way the reverse of the call stack. Just be careful, but you need a call stack to help you keep track of the execution flow. Okay, which is what we did in lecture 2A, right? So this is the call stack, and then let's now see how we can do it. And g.gm, right? So g.gm. So this is the starting point of execution. So that would mean we should put g.gm over there, right? Let me start with that. g.gm. Every time we try to make a method call, we are going to actually put it on the stack. And every time we finish a method call, we should also remove it from the call stack. That's going to be the principle. All right, let's now do one by one. So you can see when we try to execute gm, this will be the first line, right? So what I would do is I'm going to say class G and then line number 5. So that's my convention, right? G5. So this is going to be the first line. And then we're going to also execute this line over here, right? And of course, as soon as when we execute this line, it's going to be G6. But before we can move on to line number 7, it's going to be suspended because we are making a method call over here. And the method call is invoking on EM, right? And what's the corresponding class? So that depends on the type of the context object, object 1. Object 1 was declared to be of type E. So that means E.em is going to be pushed onto the stack, right? So we're going to put E.em over here, right? And then when we move on to E.em, so let me change a color. So when we go to E.em over here, right? That's the method we're going to trace from now on. Okay, hopefully so far it's okay. And also, as part of your question, I mentioned that you should only pay attention to the lines that are part of the body of implementation for the methods, right? You don't need to worry about other lines. Okay. Okay. So now we're gonna execute E.em, right? That's at the top of the stack, and the first line will be E5, right? We're gonna execute this line. So it's going to be E5, and then we're going to execute line number 6, E6. But before we move on to E7, we need to finish this method call, which is going to be another element to add to the call stack, right? So this one is actually FM2 over here. And which class does it come from? It depends on the context object obj, which is F. So that means we're going to get F dot fn2. Okay, so that's the line we gotta that's the method we gotta step into. Okay, and I already put it on the stack, so let's now go there. Okay, how about purple? Okay, so let's now go to that method. It's going to be f over here, fn2. Okay, so we're going to execute this method here. Let's now do here line number 11. So that's going to be f11. Okay, so we're going to execute this line, and then we're going to execute this line as well. And similarly, cannot move on to the next line until we finish the method call. Right? This is just another method call over here, and then f12 for sure. We're going to execute it, and this will be hm2, another method call. And it comes from the class that represents the type of objects, the context object, which is h. That means we're going to go to h.hm2. Okay, so h.hm2 is going to be the next method, right? Let me use red. So h.hm2 is going to be the next one. And then we're going to execute line number 10 and also line number 11, right? So it's going to be h10 and also h11, right? Execute this line and also execute this line. Another method call, okay? So this one is going to be fn1. And that one also comes from class f, okay? So let me, I should have more color, I'm pretty sure. How about green, okay? So now fn1 over here. So we're going to push that onto the stack again. So it's going to be f.fn1. Okay. So let's now go on to f.fn1. f.fn1 is actually over here. So we're going to execute 5 and 6 over here, right? I think we're almost reaching the maximum of the call stack. I mean the time, the point of return, almost. We're going to execute 5 and 6, right? So f5 and also f6. Okay, so we're going to when we execute line number 6, we just have one more method call. I believe that's the point of return, but let's do that. Let's use this color here. So what about hm1 and of type h, right? So h.hm1. Okay, so h.hm1 is referring to this method over here. So we're going to execute line number 5 and line number 6. And there's no further method call. So that means the stack wouldn't grow anymore. So now will be the point of return by removing the method call from the stack one by one. Okay, so now we're going to record the line. It's going to be h5 and h6. Okay, so h5 and also h6. Okay. Okay, so now let me ask Marco. Marco, you asked me the question. So far, I hope you're okay. Okay, can you tell me that after executing line number 6, apparently we are implicitly returning, we are finishing the execution for h.hm1, right? So what should we do? How should we continue with the tracing? Marco, are you still here? Yeah. I pop. Okay, good. I agree. So the way we pop is, let's say that means we're going to remove the stack, right? I'll remove one element from the stack. And then we go back to fn1. Very good. Okay, because after popping, you will see that this is the top of the stack again. So we're going to go back to where we were in fn1. Okay, very good. If we go back to fn1, okay, let me just go back there. So that means f.fn1 is actually here. So that means we're actually going to execute line number 7, right? So that means the next one will be f7. All right. So after f7, right? So now this will be the pattern we have to follow. After executing line number 7 from f, we're actually going to pop, right? Also this from the stack because we implicitly return by finishing it. And then we should go back to h.hm2, right? So let's go back to h.hm2, which is over here. Okay, and then by finishing it, we are going to continue from the red, so that'll be the 12th that we have to execute here, right? So that'll be H and then 12 over here. After executing that, we're going to remove from the stack. We're going to remove it. And we're going to continue to where we left off from Fn2. And then if you go to Fn2 over here, we're going to continue from this line over here, 13, right? And then let's now write it. So it's going to be F13, okay? After F13, we actually complete Fn2. So remove it from the stack, right? And then after that, we're going to go back to, I can see how useful the stack is. So let's see here. Let me just use the right color here. So we're going to go back to E.em. E.em is actually over here. So we're going to continue into this line, number 7, right? So it's going to be E7. And after that, we're actually going to remove it from the stack. And we should go back to G.gm, the initial method that initiates the execution. So we go back to G.gm, which is over here. And then we're going to execute this method, this line over here, which will be G7. So it's going to be G7. Okay, after that, we're going to finish executing this method here and then pop it off from the stack, and the stack is empty, and the entire execution will be done. Okay, that's the answer. Okay, it's of course I'm trying to explain to you why I'm doing this, so I think when you actually practice that maybe again, you can definitely do faster, right? But just make sure you're clear about how the entire tracing is done. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. Okay, let me just see if there's any concern from the chat. Okay, I think you guys are just trying to clarify for other people as well. That's good. All right. Marco, are you okay with this? Okay, very good. No problem. Okay, guys, I think you might find that this very tedious to do. You might be thinking, why do I need to know this? Because the way the computer actually, the runtime system actually manage the execution stack is completely automatic. But I think you will find that when you actually learn about recursion, whenever there's anything wrong with your recursion later, this is actually what you have to trace in order to find out the bug, right? That's something I'll give you more details when we talk about recursion. If you find the exercise maybe fun to do, good for you. If you find it tedious, I'm afraid that's something you have to understand to have inside knowledge before you can do some more high level stuff. Either way, you gotta learn about this. Okay? If you still have trouble understanding any particular step, you can ask me now, or I can go over that with you, maybe in the office hour. Okay? Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it definitely takes more time, but try to, for your knowledge, you want to get very used to this. And what I'm trying to simulate over here is very real. So as a programmer, you definitely actually have to understand the relationship between caller and callee and call stack. That's really something that's going to carry beyond this course, not just for 2030. Okay, that's something I hope that will also help you for later courses. Yeah. If you don't really find it very natural to you, that maybe you just need a little bit more practice, you can feel free to maybe modify the methods and also the classes maybe a little bit and try to do it to see what's the corresponding call stack and execution sequence, and then to see how that might actually have a different result. That also can help. Okay. Okay, so here I got one question here. The starting point of execution is actually G and GM, right? So there's something I tried to simplify the question a little bit. You were wondering about why G4 was actually not included in the answer. So that's something I adopted for the question just to make it easier. So you can see over here, the only line numbers that you need to consider are those within the body of implementation for each method, meaning that for this method here, we only need to worry about what's inside the curly brackets. So of course, line number 4 conceptually should also be executed, but we don't talk about it in this example. Otherwise, you will just get more lines that'll be just too hard to manage. Okay. All right. So guys, do you have any more questions? Yeah, it's up to the context definition. You're right. Yeah. So I think that's something I will try to possibly give you guys a little bit more time for written test 2, so you can have more time to adapt to the question. That's something I can do. But at the same time, please go over your week number 4 lecture about JUnit tests and also assertions and exceptions. That's something that will be covered in written test number 2. Okay, you want to get ready sooner rather than later. Okay. All right, guys. So that's about the question I was asked so far. Do you have any more questions? Anyone? If you got any questions related to lab number 2, you can also ask me. Okay. I hope you will enjoy lab number 2. I think it's an interesting problem, simplified one for you to handle about vaccination. Okay, it's kind of interesting, I think. All right, so week number 4, part of programming test. Apparently, this might be something you're concerned about by at least 2 of you. Okay, why don't we look at that together? Okay. So go to the guide for programming test 1. I really hope that you will read it. Otherwise, you might be violating some requirements, right? Please read it. But let me just show to you what will be covered. If you go to the coverage over here, okay, it's going to let's see over here. Exceptions will not be covered. So that one is week number 3. That means that for week number 4, that one is about the the JUnit test and also exceptions. Of course, that will not be covered either, right? So it's mainly week number 1 and week number 2 that we covered. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Good. All right, guys, we can finish earlier today if you don't have any further questions. Anyone want to ask more questions? What do you mean exception questions in written test? Which one? I can go over one to give you some idea. Which one? You mean about exception or about the how about I go for one? Okay, just since we have time. In part of sections. Okay, why don't we just go over one of them, okay, together. Okay, so let me just, you know what, that'll be more fun. Let me randomize my questions so I can just go over one of them with you. I should be able to preview. I'll go over one, and then for the other ones, you can practice again, and then you can come to me if you got any question. Okay, so why don't I just do one of them? Okay, this one we already covered. And this one we also covered. Okay, how about this one here? Okay, I just chose the first one that's randomly assigned to me, right? Let's see, okay? Okay, so basically for all the similar question, as I said, section 1 will be exactly the same. And I also use the same method names, as seen from your review tutorial. Okay, so that's something I assume you already know. Okay, let's just go directly to this fragment of code. Okay, and the hints over here is actually quite important. Okay, let's read it together. The number of correct answers may be 1 and maybe more than 1. So that's why you see the checkbox over here. So you can definitely check more than 1 answer if you need it. Okay. However, the second point over here is also very important. I'm not sure if you saw the hints. I said consider the sequential flow of execution at runtime. Okay. So when we spoke about exceptions, in week number 3, I said that as soon as if there's any exception or error occur in this line here, the execution flow will be disrupted, and then the remaining lines will not be continued. Right? That's really important. Which means we really cannot have more than 1 runtime errors at a time. We can only have at most 1 if there's any. So that's why for those of you who actually chose more than 1 answers, that's actually wrong. Because when you have runtime error, they can be only 1 at most. Okay, I hope that point makes sense to you. Okay, so why don't we copy and paste, just set it up. Just go over this one here. Okay, how about this one here? And for the context, I will let you read it, and let's see how we should answer this one here. And I can give you a little bit hints about others as well, if I need it, okay? Okay, so here, how about that? Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, let's now, assuming that you got some familiarity with the methods and classes, let's go over. Line number one, we're just creating RS, right? Refurbished store. And then what we're doing is we are now going over. Okay, so first of all, you want to answer the following question. When I say integer I, loop counter 1, strictly less than this, and then I++. Question number 1. How many iterations? In total. Can you give me the precise answer? Okay, I see 49 over there. Maybe I said it. I said the maximum should be 50, right? I believe. Okay, and or maximum -1. That's both are good. Okay, so since it starts from 1, and then you only go up to including get maximum capacity -1, right? It's strictly less than. Notice that. Okay, so question number 1, the answer should be rs dot get maximum capacity -1. Okay, which means rs dot, I think that there's some array called get private entries array, right? Let me just say entries, just to sketch a little bit informally. You can think about if this is the array for the entries array, right? You can think about it's going to be from 0 all the way to, okay, let me just be more precise over here, so you can also think about it. Okay, the index over here is going to be max -1, and here is going to be max -2, and etc., right? After executing the loop, the array is going to be filled up by non-null references except for the last one. This that means this last reference over here is going to be null. That's the only one that's going to be null. Okay, hopefully you're okay with that. Okay, I'm just trying to explain to you how to set it up, right? Okay, and here we're simply just going to adding the entry, one by one. So you can think about this part over here is going to point to some non-null entry, and this one as well, all the way to over here as well, right? And etc. Okay, that's basically what the loop is saying. We never try to assert the entry values, per se, but we will see. Okay, we'll see how we can get there. Okay, so here let's see the first assertion here. We want to see rs.get maximum capacity -1, and then rs.get number of entries. Should this pass or fail? I can see some remark over here. Are we missing index 0? Are we missing index 0? The answer is no. Because over here, the loop counter only tells us about how many iterations, how many times we're going to repeat this line here. This line does not use I. I mean, it does not use the I to index into the array, right? So that means we're still going to start from index 0. Because remember how the add entry is implemented. You will always start from index 0. Okay, so we are not missing index 0. Okay, just make sure you understand that, right? Yeah. Any confusion you might have, feel free to put on the chat, right? You guys might prefer to put on the chat, okay? So I can try to interact a little bit with you. Okay, so now here's my question for you guys: should this pass or fail? Anyone? This is expected, and this is actual return value, right? We are assuming that this is going to return the correct answer, right? That's what we said. All the methods will be implemented correctly. So should this be passing or fail? Xiaohui, why don't you tell us? Should this pass or fail? I see fail, I see pass, right? Well, I hope you might be based on reasoning, but it seems to me this one should pass, right? Because as I visualize, we only got this. We got this part over here. Oh, actually, let me just make it a little bit bigger. We actually got this part over here filled in, right? So that means the next the counter, like a number of entries, is going to be exactly this, maximum -1, right? Remember the second purpose for the auxiliary counter in the programming pattern, right? It's going to be maximum -1. So maximum -1 is actually okay. For some of the versions you might have gotten for this question here, I may have put just rs.get maximum capacity. So that will be wrong, right? So you got to be careful depending on the version. So this is okay. Okay, so this is going to be pass. Okay, we're going to move on. And then we're going to see this. We have some Boolean variable b over here initialized to be false. And then we're going to go over the array. You can see the way we do that is actually the correct way. We start from 0, and then go up to rs.get number of entries -1. So that means we are really trying to go over this region over here. That's really what we're doing, right? That's really what we're doing. That's okay, right? And then let's see what we are doing here. The inside, we are saying that b, the Boolean variable, is actually going to be accumulated by conjunction by this particular Boolean expression, right? I will talk about it in a moment, okay? But I'm not sure. Do you think I really need to worry about what this expression is? Do I need to? To know the final answer, you can see we got just another assertion here. So either there will be no runtime error, or maybe there will be an assertion error for this particular assertion, right? We only got these two possibilities, okay? To know if there will be an assertion error at this line, do we need to really trace? Do we need to trace this expression over here? Okay, let me just put a mark over here. Let me say star star. Do we need to trace the star star? Okay, what's your thought? No, we don't. Okay, why? I mean, why not? Why don't we have to? Since b is always false, right? It's a very quick test about what you learned from the first year, because for conjunction over here, as long as one of the operands is already false, you can never really get it to true by using conjunction. Okay, so that's a little, not really trick, but just testing what you learned from the first year as well. Okay, so here the answer is no, because, okay, I'll give you two reasons over here. Number one, the bounds of loop counter, okay, it goes from 0 until so 0, and then get number of entries, so which would be NOE -1, right? Is valid. First of all, that's what we said should be done. That should be the way to be done in the for the pattern. And number two, b initialized to be false can never turn true by conjunction, which is %, right? Initialized to be false can never turn true by conjunction. Okay, good. All right, so now what should we choose, right? There's only one assertion error, right? This in this case is assertion error. So what we should choose is an assertion error failure will occur. Okay, so that's one question. And if you see other versions of the question there will be a little tweak to different parts of the program. Some of them will maybe cause some runtime error that will happen earlier, for example, about array index out of bound. And some question there maybe is about the bounds that's being set over here is actually wrong. And some of them will actually be comparing maybe this expression over here by using maybe disjunction. Well, don't use any logical operator, right? So that's something you can just trace further. But so that'll be how I will advise you try to understand the solution of the question. Xiaohui, are you okay with this question here? Any follow-up to the question here? It's an assertion error. Yes. No, actually for conjunction, I think okay, makes sense. Okay, you thought. Okay, no problem. Just remember, if you're doing conjunction and one of them is already false, it will definitely be false. Okay, good. Okay. So guys, if you got any other questions related to this series, I would say follow the same pattern of reasoning I have just illustrated to you and try to see if you can solve it. If you got any other doubts, speak to me. Okay, I can also go over with you again. But hopefully that'll be enough for you to maybe try to do a little bit of thinking on your own. Okay. All right. So we went over 1, 2, and 3. 3 questions for your written test 1. Okay. Hopefully that will help. Any more questions today? In theory, we got another 15 or so. But if you don't have any questions, I can end the session earlier. Anyone? Okay, I'll wait for maybe about just one more moment to see if you got any more. And as I said in the beginning, you really want to make sure while you're working on your programming test 1 preparation, which is good, but don't forget lab 2 is also has been released. You don't really want to delay maybe until next week, which is the reading week, I know, but I'm pretty sure you got other courses maybe to catch up as well. So you don't really want to leave lab 2 until next week. Otherwise, you may not be able to finish that. Okay? You want to make some progress as well this week. Okay. Final call. Any more questions? Okay, guys, you're welcome. Okay, so I think if you really are behind for studying a lecture, okay, try to catch up and then reach out to me if you got any questions. That's the best I can do. All right. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. And then I'll see you either tomorrow if you want to come again for the Q&A, or I'll see you next, maybe not next Wednesday because it's going to be the reading week, but I might see you during my office hour. All right. Is there a question there for Anne?
Hi, Professor. Sorry, are your office hours going to remain the same during reading week?
Good question. I'm still debating myself, like what might be the best time. So I will announce very soon. So it may not be the same hours, like during the non-reading week, but I will announce. Don't worry. So I'll definitely make some time during the reading week.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, guys. Best of luck to your endeavor for this course, and then I will see you very soon. All right, you guys take care.